Salut, c'est Shox de G2.
Okay, this is another episode of Talk to Thorin, and I'm here with NBK from G2. Now, this is obviously going to be an interview mainly about G2, the super team, all that sort of stuff. So let's start right there, right? NBK in G2. Like, I remember NBK in VeryGames and then in Titan, but NBK wasn't in G2. G2 was like Shox and Scream and RPK and those guys. So when this super team got made now, people obviously know what the lineup is now, but I wanted to know from your perspective, because I assume now you can talk about it. Like, there were discussions going on pretty much all last year about if there was going to be a super team or who might be in it, and obviously at the time the contracts etc didn't make sense to do one, but it was kind of an ongoing discussion across last year, right?
Not across the whole year. It's been kind of on and off when teams were going. We're playing just a bit worse than they expected. There were some points where there were some contacts, but there was nothing really concrete at any point of time until end of November from 2016. That's where we actually really started planning things out with that roster. So throughout the year, it was really some kind of talks that never really led into anywhere because, yeah, there was nothing really concrete. We all wanted to give shots to our respective teams.
Okay. Do you think that, like, was it when they were discussing like who would be in this team? Okay, like the two obvious names is KennyS and Shox. You know, like those are the two where it feels like any variant of this super team would have had those two. You know, I mean, it made sense for them to team up now. But was it always the case that NBK was someone mentioned? Because I know there was a few names that were like kind of touch and go at times, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because apparently I was not. I guess if there was those kind of discussions, I wouldn't know about them. But I don't know. I think I bring something to a team that is more than just in game playing the hard roles and positions, but I also bring in general structure and kind of more bigger principles or ideas behind how to have a good team and how to make a team work. And so I guess that's why I was quite confident that I was going to be in the plans if anything was going to happen. So, I mean, yeah, I didn't really think about it until things started being more concrete. And if there were talks before that without me for other teams in something that would be concrete, sure, then I would have no idea about it.
So throughout the years, you're one of the few players who's played multiple times with KennyS and Shox as like potential stars or bigger names in the teams. Obviously, you were in like early VeryGames and then LDLC with Shox, and then you were in VeryGames and then Titan with KennyS. So we know that the interesting part about them being like the two big names is that they never have been in the same team. In fact, they always replaced each other. You know, it would always be like as one left, the other one joined. So what are the challenges of having both in the team at the same time?
I think the main challenge is not having both of them at the same time because Shox became a bit more passive, being the in-game leader. So I think that his game became more complete, and so there are two big action. With Apex, there are three out of them big action creators. So the biggest challenge is to build something around them, or to have those players sometimes step down and let others take action while those are being effective while being passive. And so that was, to me, the main challenge. Sorry, just a cat passing by and taking the cable. That was, to me, the main challenge working with them. But I mean, they're persons and players that are easy to work with when they have the liberty that they need or that they want, more specifically. And once they have this, it's fairly easy for them to work in a team. So the good part about this roster and the fact that they're playing together right now and for the first time and not before is that you have Kenny, that is a very aggressive sniper, that is being helped by Schmitt to calm down and to be more passive and work in a team in that regard. And same for Shox, that was always very aggressive and in a very disrespectful style. Now being the in-game leader for the past year, I think he realized that sometimes aggressivity is not always the solution. So yeah, they're both more complete players and that's why I think they fit well together.
Okay. So was it true that last year when EnVyUs, I remember it was around like the summer because it was like E-League Season 1, I heard that you guys in EnVyUs did kind of like, I mean, you tried everything else with the team, you know, the results weren't so good. That was when I remember you saying that you were trying to like make Kenny S more of a focal point, you know, like get him the AWP as much as possible, set him up a bit, you know, and it worked for a little while, you know. It looked like it was kind of a way to have something consistent, you know, because obviously a lot of the players were up and down at that time in the team. Were you one of the people kind of leading that? I know in EnVyUs you were kind of the one setting the pace to some degrees as to what ideas or what direction we go in.
Yeah, especially on the city side, because at that point, that's around when I started being the city side leader. So I was calling on the city side, and I mean, you can work with Kenny pretty easily because you can be confident that he's going to hit his shots when you set him up pretty good, and so I worked with that principle of Kenny being our the opening into the round that we needed in order to have a good city side. And yeah, I mean, on the T side, I think it's quite hard, especially with the approach that Happy has with the game. So it was really hard to work around Kenya's. But yeah, especially on the city side, I tried to push him more and more into him being more proactive with the op and kind of like running around the map like EnVyUs is doing currently.
So obviously throughout your career, you've played with some really good in-game leaders and some very different styles of in-game leading. I mean, pretty much the opposite ends of the spectrum if we think about like the French scene. But one of the things I've noticed is you've got a kind of a tendency, right? You're what I call a 2-week in-game leader, where every now and then, right, when things are going badly, for some reason it comes out of you. You're like, right, I should be the in-game leader, and you go all in on it. And I know for the first week you really believe it, like you just know this is the future. I'm an in-game leader now, but for whatever reason, it never ends up lasting. You always come back out of it, and then but you kind of flirt with it again by, like you're saying here, being like CT side leader or the secondary leader or something. Obviously in this team on paper it's supposed to be Shox as the in-game leader, right? So is NBK playing any kind of a role in the in-game leading to an extent?
It's quite hard. We're trying to be a team that is more like fanatic in the regard that every player can take decisions regarding the game, especially Kenny. We generally never refuse Kenny anything when he asks for something in a game. If he wants to pick somewhere, if he wants to go aggressive, if he wants to do something. So he has an important power role in the team. Shox is obviously the cutter, and Apex sets up the when we're taking zones, and so he's setting up that kind of thing the way we take it. And I have a role mostly in the mid rounds in redirecting the game and having a vision a bigger vision than them because I have a role where I can take my time and see what's going on the map. So yeah, it's very balanced. We're trying to build the game together. We're kind of changing stuff and still adapting. Like we're changing positions and still trying to find our pace. But regarding the leading now, the only thing I'm really calling are the CT pistol rounds. Apex takes the T pistol rounds. So we try to make it very specific on what are people's strength and what they can give to the team. And so in that regard, that's why we can play many maps fairly good, and why we can adapt pretty good to the teams and never lose by very big margins. Because we will have someone in the team that is going to be able to call by their strength, or just with a different approach that when you started the game with.
So if we go back in time to when EnVyUs was really good, I mean, I realize, we're going back like a year and a half here. It's not that recent, when the team was like a potential champion. And at the time, I've brought this up many times in a joking manner, okay? But there's a lot of truth to it. You guys really did think that not only were you like a good team or the best team, but you kind of figured Counter-Strike out. Like you kind of had the best grasp on the metagame. I mean, this is when famously, I think it was you or Happy said that line in an interview, like, yeah, we've broken the metagame, we're like everyone else. That's why we're going to be the best team, essentially, because we can get like good matchups against everyone. I know like Happy's philosophy was like that,
Yeah.
So obviously that didn't work out beyond that in 2016. And I know a lot of people did like the kind of very simplistic fan analysis, which is like, oh, they're just not good players anymore. Which like, I don't really buy that logic, like team style contributes massively to how good a team is, because it's like, how are we using the players? Like, what are they doing against specific opponents? So what would you say about that? Like the the whole aspect of when, I mean, obviously at the time you were winning the tournament. So were you on top of the metagame? Was there some kind of a misread in 2016? What's your take on that?
No, first of all, I think some teams emerged that really changed. Okay, so starting at the very beginning, I think we broke the metagame in the sense that we brought, I mean, Happy mainly, brought something new with the game style he was creating, and he was forcing the other teams to adapt to us. Sure. And so for quite a long time, it was working. And I mean, it worked for a few months at the very beginning of the lineup when we were LDLC. Then in EnVyUs, we had the change of Shucks and Smith, and then we had Kenny and Apex that brought some simple ideas that would just change our game enough for it to be better again, but still in the same idea. So again, it worked for a few months, and then when we had to renew that and try to change the game style because we were getting figured out, because our game style was not complicated. It was pretty simple. It was very packed, taking the zones, and very simple redirection, one pod flash, and that's it. You just rush on the bomb site. And so when teams figure you out, it's very hard to get out of that style and use players differently or have a different approach to the game. And so that's where we really struggled, in my opinion, to work our way to the top level again. And so yeah, that was many our downfall, not being able to adapt to the new teams that were coming up, like SK, LG at the time, that were bringing a metagame that was strat heavy and very team play based. And when you have team play and strat against a very rough and raw style, the team play style is going to take it over the very simplistic approach to Counter-Strike. And so all the teams kind of adapted to SK. And by adapting to SK and playing the same game style and the same game than them, they were countering us at the same time. So that's why we couldn't get anything going anymore. And then, yeah, it was kind of simply the team a bit falling apart. We couldn't find anything to rely on. People had different ideas, and yeah, it was not really working playing together.
So back when the different NV lineups actually were, winning majors and winning big titles, people won't believe this who are more modern fans. I used to actually defend Happy. If people said he was a beta, I'd say, well, here's the thing. It's not baiting if you win the rounds. It's not baiting if that works and that style actually destroys the rotators and all that. In that case, yeah, it's a very kind of like selfish style of play, I guess. But if it works, I mean, we let star players be selfish, like in football, if someone scores all the goals, great, we win the game. What happened in 2016 though? Because it feels like, especially when Happy wasn't the in-game leader, like a lot of people were very critical of his style of play then. What was your take from inside the team?
I think Happy is a good player in his system, and that's where he's going to excel, and that's where he's going to be able to create the game, work around him, have people trust him, and be in his zone and being confident to whatever he's doing. And so I think that's the main thing with Happy. And so when I tried to, it was not really a 180 of the game we were doing before, but I tried to really change a lot of stuff and approach the game in a different manner. And so trying to take Happy and bring him into the system that he was not really buying in. And so yeah, I think it just didn't work out. He couldn't really, I think he didn't really have the will to adapt to it because he was still in his system. He wanted exactly to do what he wanted to do and what he felt was right. And so and from that point, he just lost confidence. Like, he's someone that works a lot with confidence, and if it works and it's not broken, why fix it? That's kind of his mentality. And yeah, he just, to me, a problem of adaptation. And when you look at Envy now, it's kind of the same game style that they had. I mean, that Happy had for the past 2 years, the same game plan with the team. And yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. And yeah, regarding the baiting point, again, you said it pretty perfectly, where it was working. He brought something new, and the only problem again was that he got figured out by other teams, that he was always lurking in the same positions, roughly the same timings, and that's where he lost in efficiency and lost his confidence.
So I've noticed a trend over your career, which is that not only are you, that part of the reason probably why every now and then you want to try being the in-game leader is you've always been someone who tries to be an integral part of whatever the style is and whatever the system is. And so all your in-game leaders, I've noticed at the time you were playing with them, you were like very, very like of one mind with them. So when you were Existence, you obviously had the very tactical style and you worked around the star players. Then you moved over, you were with Happy, you went with this more extreme style, like the Death Ball style. And then you obviously had your own times where you tried to be the in-game leader. So it would be kind of shocking if you went back in time like a year and a half ago. And I told you, back in time, oh, you'll actually just not even be playing with Happy in a year and a half from now. I mean, it seemed like you two were like, you were the pair, right? You were of one mind. So why is Nathan not playing with Happy anymore? Why is Happy not in the super team?
I think it's for the reasons that I kind of stated before, in the fact that, I mean, that is true. I've always trusted my in-game leaders 100%. When I could understand what was going on, why things were being called, and why that would work. And that it was actually working, that we had good results, that we were winning. And it just kind of, I tend to realize the reasons why we lose. Sometimes we lose because we're just bad. We're just not focused. Individually, we're not here. Sometimes we lose because we do the bad gambles and there's not much you can do. I mean, if you have bad luck for one day and you always go on the bomb side where they're stacked, then not much you can do about that. And there are also times where you lose because your game style is not adapted to what's going on against you anymore. And so that's where I started feeling that change. And that's, in general, I mean, that's why I tried in-game leading for those small periods you were talking about. Because I think it's necessary for a team, and especially an in-game leader, to have a period of, 1-2 months maybe, where somebody else can take that role and give a little bit of room to breathe for the in-game leader and come back fresh with new ideas whenever he wants to, and comes back with a new mentality almost into the game. And so that's kind of what we wanted to do with Happy, or at least that's the way I was seeing it. Maybe he was seeing it differently, I don't really know. But that's kind of what I felt like doing with Happy. And so, yeah, I trusted him 100% until things were not working because we were not in the meta anymore, but nothing was really changing. And so that's where it was harder to trust him 100% into whatever he was calling and whatever he was doing.
So one thing about last year that is like in general, right, I'm actually quite accepting person, like, for example, I've heard stories that at different times in his career, for example, Shox wasn't always like super dedicated, but as long as he's really good in the game, even though it's the same with Forrest, you could just say like, oh, but be more dedicated, be like the most dedicated player and you'd just be the best player. But the thing is, if that's just their personality and they do perform, I kind of say like, okay, you gotta take the bad part with the good part and just say that's who they are, right? But when I heard some of the stories last year that certain members of the team, I'm not including you in this, but certain members of EnVyUs, like, would literally, in private, they would admit, like, yeah, I haven't been practicing much, or yeah, like, I lost confidence, I wasn't doing a lot of training, as in, like, beyond scrims, actually trying to get their level up. Yeah. That's kind of, like, it's hard to justify that, So, like, what was the struggle in that sense, kind of trying to motivate guys to actually, like, want to be the best again if you're going through a hard period?
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's a problem that every team has, or most of the teams have, that have been playing for, let's say, more than 3 years at the highest level. Players always have a moment where they're not 100% motivated by the game anymore, and finding the motivation back is always something that is very, very delicate because it depends on the person. And so that's where esports is not developed enough to have the infrastructure behind the teams and the players to have someone following the players and someone that the players can talk to in order to stay focused into the game and interested by what they're doing and really liking what they're doing. And so I guess from my observation, it comes from either not enjoying playing with the people you are in the team with. And so just, simply it's hard to come practice if you're with 4 persons or 3 or 2 or even 1 person that you just hate playing with, and that you think that player is bad, or that player, or any given reason that the person is finding. And again, it's up to the individual persons to find their reasons why they're playing, how to get back into the mood when they're not motivated anymore. And again, it's a lot about results. If Yeah, I just think it's necessary to have a basis of practice with the team, because you need team play, and you create that by playing over and over again together. So I think you just need a basis, and then if people want to play more or less, as long as they're good, it doesn't really matter what they're doing, whether they're playing a lot on the side or not. And so, yeah, I guess it depends of the person and their reasons to be motivated, and that's the only way to put them back into a good place and back as a good player.
So you've been a part of 2 teams that Shocks either left or was kicked from. And I know the last time when he was essentially like, there was the power struggle in EnVyUs, and then him and Schmitt left and joined Titan, and then you obviously brought in Kenny S and Apex. During this period in time, I heard behind the scenes the sentiment between you and Shocks was like, it wasn't good. Like you didn't have a good relationship, or there was some sort of like, I guess, rivalry, you know. How would you describe it? Like, how come the 2 of you now play together again?
It's pretty funny. I mean, it's been a trend where whenever Shocks and I are not part of the same team anymore, there's a lot of things going on social medias, on interviews, etc. But I was just, I mean, it was a team decision, and I was just the voice behind it. That's roughly it. So I don't know if there were very hard bad feelings. I mean, not on my side. There wasn't, and maybe on his side there was, but I mean it's always kind of the same in the French scene. We've all been through that over and over again in several shuffles, team creations, or kicks, and so it's not something that lasts forever. And after a few months, in general, it's gone, because that's the thing. If one team out of the shuffle, if one team was to be extremely good and the other extremely bad, I mean, nobody is really going to have a hard feeling, because the person that is extremely bad wants to win, and the player in the team that is extremely good is winning, and so it doesn't really matter what happened before and if you had bad blood with someone or not. And now we play together again because in game with Shocks, I think we've always had very, very similar ideas and a very similar approach to the game. And it's always good to play with Shocks. He's an excellent player, so it was a no-brainer to go and play back with him.
So whenever I was talking last year about the G2 team, some people towards the end of the year were kind of like critical of them, were like, oh, you know, they don't win anymore, they're not top 10. And I always used to tell people, like, you have to look at the context of their team. Basically, the only player who basically had any choice about being in that team was Shocks to some degree. He wasn't like kicked because of lack of skill or whatever, but everyone else in that team was kind of a reject, you know, like Scream, no one wanted him in any of the best French teams anymore. RPK obviously hadn't even been back that long. That's why in Titan he'd played and just been an okay player, you know. Body was a brand new player, no one knew him. And Smith's, obviously, at that point in time, that was one of the worst periods of his career. You know, he wasn't as good as some of the past years. Yep. So, in theory, on paper, it should never have been the French team. It should best French team. It should never have been one of the best teams in the world. And so, I was kind of amazed. It was the other way around. I was amazed that they did it, you know, and managed to have such big results. Like, how do you explain that? How did a team that was basically kind of rejected players, you know, the leftover parts, how did that become the best French team and one of the best teams in CS last year? What's your perspective?
I think Shocks was a good part of it, in a sense that he understood pretty well what his players needed to really succeed and to make the team work. So I think that's a very good part of it. And then obviously at some point for a period of 2 months, the players were all firing on all cylinders. They were all playing amazing. Body was extremely impressive the few months he was on the team. Even few weeks that he was on the team, he was playing extremely well. And then RPK, Scream, Shocks, I mean, you have firepower over there. And Smith just supporting everyone. On paper, it was just players that were not at their peaks at all, that were together, but their lineup still made sense, and Shocks supported them in a good way. And so that, to me, that's why it worked good. They were all biting into the same system. They all trusted what they were doing to work, and they were all trusting Shocks to be leading by example. And so they're simple players in the sense that RPK, Scream, and Shox and Buddy at the time that was not really experienced. He was, look, we're gonna go on a server. We're gonna do something very simple, map control or rush B, and we're gonna destroy them. And if we're in trouble, anybody of us is gonna clutch. And so I guess that Shox came in with a ton of motivation and being like, look, I'm gonna clutch. I'm gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna entry. I'm gonna do everything. And so they hyped each other up, I would suppose, and went on to play extremely good and in their simple style win games against some of the best teams in the world.
So if everyone can remember when we did that Reflections, it was a while ago now, and I know it was a while ago because it was before all the G2 stuff happened where they got really good. Yeah. Because one of the questions I asked you in that was about Scream, and people will forget you've played in 2 different lineups with Scream. You know, you've played with them a bunch of different times, and it's not like you were just a rival of his who never played with him commenting. You know, you've had him as one of your star players, and I kind of agree with the sentiment of what you were saying. Like the big problem was he wasn't like a reliable star player. You know, like if he's in your team, you never know what you're going to get from him. Sometimes, like I remember against NIP, he might have 30 frags, but then another game he might have like 12. And then you look at the game, it's not like he was a much worse player. It's almost like he didn't know what his role was. Or he couldn't do that role, and so he's always been a mystery. You know, no one's ever really figured out how to get the best out of him. But then obviously last year, who knows why, but it changed, right? What did you think of Scream last year?
I think it was pretty impressive. I mean, it was pretty funny because we had that interview, and obviously everyone was insulting me for what I was saying about him. But literally right after that moment that we had this interview, he changed his game style somehow, and he became a much more complete player. And I've never said that he was a bad player. I just said that he was inconsistent. And he managed to change his game style. He's still in that headshot machine research mode, but he is more complete in what he's doing. And so, no, I was impressed by his progression. And the other thing is, again, we did 10 over the month in a year, in like 1 or 2 years again. At the moment, he's still very inconsistent, and so I really don't know where it comes from, because I think he has all the ability. He's a smart player, especially in clutch situations, and he is working with experienced players and happy that he's very strict and like tells him exactly what to do, and so. I really cannot explain his inconsistency and why some games he's going to be killing it, some he won't be. It's kind of a mystery, but he improved as a player for sure. Especially playing with Shox, I guess. I think especially playing with Shox and with the simple system. Scream has always been working well with Shox. In the past teams, there were like some Counter-Strike source teams where we were in VeryGames at the time. We were the best team in the world, and there was another French team, 3D Max, that came in for 2 weeks or something, and Shox and Scream played together. They absolutely destroyed us and won a tournament over us. And so there was always something with Scream and Shox when they are under the same banner and the same ideas. Scream is going to play very good, and he's going to be working well with Shox. So I think there is something in that. I think there is something in that when they're playing together at their peaks and when they understand each other. That's the only thing that I can take away from Scream and from analyzing where his consistency come from.
Because obviously when this lineup of G2 was announced, one of the pieces of context that made people upset was that not only was Scream not in the lineup, but NBK was in the lineup, and then there's this context that NBK had criticized Scream in the past, so people think the implication is, fans who think on a game on a very, very simple level, they think the implication is that everyone sat down and said NBK is a better player than Scream.
Yeah, which is not the truth. We're different players, and the thing is, again, we try to explain it, but people never really bite into it. But it's a big matter of roles. We have big action creators, Apex, Kenny, and Shox. They like to create action, and Buddy and me are much more passive, and they can. And if they make mistakes or if they die by being aggressive, we're going to be here to kind of stabilize what's going on in the game in general. So we're different players, we're not at the same roles at all, and that's the main difference. Then, yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just very different in the way we approach the game and the way and the way we're useful to a team. And so that's why in that roster we had players that were already giving some, how can I say that? Giving what Scream could give to the team with their style. So the Shocks, Kenny, and Apex.
So when this team was formed, I mean, I will just say outright, like, you guys never said you were the super team. You never said we have just formed the super team. It's the best team that could ever be formed, and we will win all the majors. You didn't say that, but the reason why you get called the super team is because everyone else looked at the names and was like, right, you know, like a lot of analysts especially were like, this is a team that could do amazing. They could win the majors, could do all these things, you know, if everything worked out, obviously, in that sense. Why I've noticed that it seems like there was a little bit of hesitancy from people in the team when that label came along, super team. Like, you wanted to kind of like, you didn't necessarily want, was it too much pressure? Because I would think after the bad year last year, when things were bad for both teams at different points in time, that you'd almost embrace it, like, well, yeah, let's be the super team.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the goal. But the thing is, we knew we wouldn't be the best at the start of the roster because we came from two very different backgrounds. Shocks has his ideas, and he's been leading for over a year. And we were happy that we had a very strict game style, and we both teams were kind of in scrambles, and there was not much we could take from our teams respectively that would make us super confident going forward. And especially setting up the goal at the very beginning to create that team on the long run and actually try to find a game style that suits everyone, where everyone is happy, everyone can make whatever they feel like doing, and being comfortable in anything they were doing. And so that was our challenge. That's why, of course, we think by creating that team that we put the best persons together possible to make the job and win games. But it doesn't mean that we are overconfident, that we are saying that we're going to destroy everyone. Of course, our goal is to be the best team in the world, to win majors, to do all that kind of stuff. But we are aware that it's going to take some time, especially regarding the level of the teams right now. And it's going to come. It's going to come. And that's why people were calling it the super team. They were expecting us to like come in, roll skill, destroy everyone, but that's not the game style we wanted to take. That's not the approach of the game we wanted to take. And that's where people were maybe disappointed, I guess, that we're not winning at the beginning. And I mean, we were disappointed as well, but we knew that we were going to work on the longer term. And I mean, now it makes more sense. People maybe now understand because we've been winning much more games. ESL Pro League, we've had an excellent streak of games. And all that kind of stuff. So not calling ourselves also the super team also removes some of the pressure that everyone has, because for them, I mean, for the community, we destroyed two teams that were, I mean, G2 that were pretty good, that were up and down, Envy that were bad, but we had some okay games, I guess, at some point. And so they took us for responsibility. They say, okay, if you don't win with this team, then why did you make it? And so we didn't want to be associated to that kind of thinking.
So even in the early days when you were losing the first games and people were kind of thinking like, oh, maybe this lineup isn't going to work. One of the interesting things I heard from some other teams who were at the pro level who were practicing you is they said that in the early days, like, this will sound strange, but the reason why they didn't think that you were a bad team early on is because they said that when they practiced against you, it was like very weird. And they said it was almost like it felt like a waste of time for them because it felt like you weren't doing like real tactics. Like you were just testing out the roles or something like that. Like you were just trying to get used to the role. Is there any truth to this? Like, what was the early days like when you were losing?
No, not really. It took some time for us to figure out exactly what we wanted to do in the game. I think that was the main point, and it was just, I mean, I think it didn't last for too long, but obviously we didn't have like very set tactics. But at the very beginning, we had to, yeah, I mean, it was the IEM Katowice qualifier, I think, and so we had to practice very quickly 6 maps because we wanted to I mean, it was best of 3 qualifier, so we wanted to be able to win on 6 maps potentially. And so picking up Overpass that we've never played with, we've never played with Envy for over 7 months or something. Train that we barely played, and all those maps. So we tried, and it was probably a mistake to play 6 maps at the very beginning of the team. So that's why what we were doing was random, because we didn't have time to really practice and put the hours into doing the real ideas we wanted to do behind a map, working together as a team, etc. And so I mean, that might have been. That's the only reason I see why people in teams would say that. But we've never, maybe once a week, but we've never threw practice away and did random stuff just for the purpose of doing random stuff.
Okay. So I remember just before Star Series, there was a pro player who made a tweet. Off the top of my head, I think it was Sticko from
It was Sticko, yes.
Yeah. He made a tweet that was very provocative, because he actually said something along the lines of, like, he didn't understand why people thought you were a bad team. He thought you were the best team, and then he even said better than Astralis, better than like he really went ham with it. So
yeah, in practice.
Okay, in practice. So is this accurate? Were you just destroying everyone in practice? Were you hitting the peak mode or whatever?
Yeah, I think I could not tell you the exact moment. I think it was right before SLTV. But I mean, we have a great analyst, NKJ, that is working with us, and he is tracking all the scores and the pistol rounds, etc., that we are making. Okay. And he's just making statistics with, like, I mean, not really statistics, but he is just tracking our records against other teams and our practice in general, just so we know how we look on some maps, etc. And so I think Hellraisers over the core, like over 10 maps, I think they've won on 10 maps. I think they've never won more than 7 rounds on like over 30 or over the 30 practice rounds. Yeah. On 10 practice, but like on each map, I mean. So I understand why they say that, and for some reason, yeah, we were playing amazing. It was not only against them; it was against everyone. We were really playing extremely well as a team, and in practice, when there was no pressure, everyone was hitting crazy shots. We had the best team plays, etc. And so we realized that when we were in practice, the atmosphere, the communication was really different than when we were playing official games, and I mean online at the time, because we didn't play online yet. And so there was a specific point where we did. I remember we had a very specific discussion about, listen, why are we good? Why are we excellent in practice, and why are we an average team in official games? And so we realized that we were much more tense in official games, and our comms were really super fast, super stressed, and it was not the way we needed to make it if we wanted to be good. And then we reminded ourselves of NIP, that is in the final of Katowice, that was the major at the time, that was just like making random jokes and talking random bullshit almost 24/7. And so we tried this approach of being more relaxed in a game, just like we were in practice. And that's where we started being good. Like, that's where we started winning games, and almost all the games we played. And I understand the tweet of Sticko, and it was, I mean, for us, we didn't take it as Sticko being provocative towards us, because
I mean provocative in the sense that, like, if you tell someone that a team who hasn't even been to our LAN yet is better than Astralis, that's kind of a pretty bold statement, you know. Yeah. People are going to get excited about that.
That's true, yeah. No, but I mean, I understand that, because the results we had in practice against them were terrific. It was really crazy, and yeah, we were playing, and we're still playing in practice better than we are in official games, because we still need to find the perfect balance of being relaxed enough and focused enough to play good.
Okay, so when you went to Star Series, even if you just told me all that, like, really, it sounds awesome in interviews, we don't want the pressure of being the super team, it's not going to happen immediately, we've got to work our way there. That's like a perfect way to set it up so that people aren't too harsh, the fans, Yep. But when you 3-0 the group and you just wreck everyone and, like, no one has a chance, and you're playing really good teams as well, part of you has to think, like, maybe this is the super team, maybe it is all going to happen at this first tournament, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have to think that if we want to I mean, if we want to win a tournament, we have to believe we're the fucking best of the tournament and we're going to destroy everyone. But to be fair, regardless of the result of SLTV, we went to the event not concerned about the result and just really focused about creating and showing good games and being good at what we're doing. And so, to be fair, well, yeah, we played. So first round we played NIP, and so those 3 games we played were perfect in almost every regard.
Yeah,
because we won the pistols, we won the anti-ecos, we broke the economy exactly when we needed to, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, those 3 games were perfect. We played perfect Counter-Strike, perfect rounds, all that kind of stuff. And so it looks easy. And then we come in against FaZe where we lose the 6 pistol rounds. We are much more shaky in clutch situations in anti-ecos, although we win countless ecos against them. And so that's where that status of new team is kind of inconsistent, because we need to adapt to every single team, and so the experience on LAN that we're going to have together will help being better. And so that's where it's not really deception losing against FaZe in the quarterfinals, especially because they win the tournament behind.
Sure, yeah.
But it's more that we didn't play as good as we could, as good as we wanted to, and as good as we did in the group stage literally 2 days before. So that's the only deception we have coming from SLTV, because yeah, we didn't look like the super team that we were supposed to be in that quarterfinal. But yeah, when everything is going extremely well, we feel like we're the best team in the world. Maybe we're not, maybe we are. But when we're going to play on LAN at the same level we do in practice, we will see if we're worthy winning tournaments against everyone.
When you guys were LDLC and the CZ was overpowered and they just introduced the Tech 9,
yep.
I obviously, a lot of us were exaggerating when we said like they only win, fucking ecos or super low eco force buys. What we really meant there was usually teams don't win many of them, and usually teams win a lot more gun rounds. So it's true back then you used to win a lot of them compared to number of gun rounds for a top team, but this particular match was ridiculous. I mean, this was a match where they won a lot too, but I'd love someone to go and count how many gun rounds G2, like a full gun round versus gun round G2 won, because it can't be many, and yet you got into 3 maps and it was still, they only won 16-10 on the 3rd map. Like why is the team going so ham on low econ buys?
I think we're actually pretty decent in gun rounds. All in all, I think we are pretty solid. Even against FaZe, I mean, when we start our comeback on the T side of Train, we win almost only gun rounds. Because they have quite a strong economy, and we lost all the pistol rounds anyway, so they had money and they had gun rounds. But yeah, maybe it's a French thing. I don't know. But I think it's something that, maybe a French thing in the sense that we've always been playing very aggressive and we're always playing with happy. I have very simple, packed, very fast-paced tactics, and that worked brilliantly with the Tech 9, especially now that the UMP is here. And it's also a stupid gun, which is too strong for everything, but that's another discussion. And there's just several reasons, I guess, why that works with our team, and probably because of the game style and the fact that we have also very strong pistol players, and also thanks to Astralis that created amazing eco tactics with few smokes, few flashes, and that we stole everything. So that's also another thing. So we stole some work from other teams. We're very good with pistols. That's it. I think that's a big reason why.
One thing that's a little bit alarming about G2 to me is if everyone says like, this is like a dream team. Everyone's always wanted to see like Kenny S, Shox in the same team. Like, but if I imagine that dream scenario, Shox doesn't also have an AWP in that scenario. I mean, obviously he's got a rifle. He's one of the best riflers of all time. Kenny S is one of the best AWPers. So here's the thing. On certain maps, I understand why someone who plays a certain spot wants an AWP. But can you explain to me why G2 wanted to run multiple times double AWP T-side train? Like, I don't know anyone who does that. Like, whose approach is AWPing T-side train too?
It's So first of all, it's I mean, double up is something that we are very often doing. I think a lot of people saw it in several of our games, but it's something again that we are still kind of experimenting in the team. That's what I was talking before. That we're still trying stuff and like trying to adapt things. And for instance, it was Sharks calling double up, and I think he pushed it a little bit too much against FaZe because they had a pretty different game style, sorry. And in practice it worked very good for us to run the double up setup, even on T side and this on several maps. And yeah, it just FaZe played good. And for instance, when we had the double up on City side and Inferno, and I think they won the half 10-5 if I'm correct, I don't remember. They managed to counter our double up setup, and that was the first team that was actually doing it because they managed, like Karrigan called in a way that the complete team was adapting to what we were doing with the ops. And so again, it's just finding this balance on when to take it and when not to take it. Looking back at the game, it was obviously a mistake to take it so much, not to take it period, but to take it so much, because in some rounds or in some periods of the game, it is extremely important, and it works very well to do that, to work with two ups. So it's the kind of mistakes that we're going to take away from the LAN, and that we're not going to make again. In that sense, not buying too many ops on T side, etc. So yeah, it was a mistake from our side due to our inexperience with the roster on LAN against top teams. With that setup, and so we didn't adapt in a game. That was also a mistake.
Okay, so all that stuff about like, you know, we don't want the pressure and we're going to build up slowly. That's all great months and months in the past year. You made this lineup like a few months ago now. Now you've had a LAN, you've had a lot of online games. Now's the time when G2 is supposed to start winning, right? It's supposed to be the next tournaments.
I would say our peak would be in June, July. I'd say that would be our peak. Or peak of form, because that would be theoretically when we would be ready on the 6 maps with our ideas practiced, repeated, few LANs, like 1, 2, 3 LANs to prepare ourselves and to get ready, and to get enough practice and knowing how to adapt to other teams, etc. I would say that would be our peak, but we have DreamHack Austin coming up, and we have DreamHack Tour coming up in the respectively 1 and 2 weeks. And the objective is pretty simple. We have to win those 2 tournaments. Tour has Navi coming, and Mouse, which are 2 of the strongest teams. There's also going to be Envy. I mean, there are some good teams, but if we want to pretend being the super team, it's kind of like SK at Beyond the Summit. They cannot lose the tournament. Otherwise, I mean, it would show weakness if they don't win the tournament.
Sure.
And it's kind of the same regard. That's how we kind of approach those 2 tournaments, and that puts a lot of pressure on us. But I mean, at some point, if you want to be respected and be a top 5 team, you have to live up to your expectations and actually win games in tournaments. So that's our objective for the next tournaments, and hopefully that will set us up to build confidence, build momentum, be able to make mistakes at those tournaments but not being harshly punished and lose the tournament behind. Just making mistakes but being able to go through and work with them instead of having them make us lose a game. So yeah, that's our objectives. And at some point, I mean, we're good at experienced player, and the pressure is not going to take us down. It's just about being able to work together within the expectations and living up to our expectations.
So one of the things when you say about trying to be good on 6 maps that I find was quite shocking about the new G2 when you started winning games is that actually, online at least, 2 of your best maps ended up being Nuke and Train. And if people know the history of the French teams of the last few years, like, okay, VeryGames was good on Nuke, but that was literally like 3 years ago, you know. So you have to put that in the past, and that was the old nuke. But with the last teams, with the EnVyUs and G2 of last year and going into the past, like Train was never really a map for either. It was like at the best in the middle to the lower part of the map pool. And then I know both of you tried to get good at nuke. I know EnVyUs was trying really hard in like the autumn of last year, but even so, the actual records weren't so good on the map. You know, you could maybe play the map, but it wasn't like a dominant map. So can we really live in a world where these could be like 2 of the top 3 maps for this G2? What's changed about the team to want to embrace these maps over, you know, like at the moment you think maps for G2 should be cash, maybe something like that, right? These are more traditional maps. Yeah,
more open, more like, skill based, etc. I think nuke works very good for us because we all have the same ideas on the map, and we work. I mean, we have the same ideas. That's basically it. And on nuke, that works pretty good. We can work together in a way that makes sense for us to be a team on the map, and so I think that's the main point why we're good on the map, and that we're all comfortable playing on it. There's not a single player on the map I think that is like, I hate this map. I feel that I can do nothing, because it would be wrong, because everyone is comfortable on it. And so I think that's going to stay one of our best maps. Especially also because we have Kenyas. Kenyas on nuke is a monster. We still have yet to exploit him perfectly on the T side, but on the CT side, he's a monster. I mean, I think he's dropping almost 20 kills per half on the CT side against almost every team. And Train, it's kind of weird because I think we're decent on it, but it's not like we're the best on it. So yeah, it's hard to say if it's going to stay our best map, but it's something that they have a lot of fun with, and by they I mean Shocks and Schmitt. They're always talking about the fact that the old G2 roster was very good on Train, on practice, and online.
Yeah.
And then they sucked online on it.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's a map where everyone is kind of comfortable on it. And so that's why we like playing it, and we're not too bad. But I think we have still to figure out our exact play style and how to be very good on it. For instance, we played Astralis not long ago online, and we lost 12-16 or 13-16. And it was, again, a game style that Astralis played that we've never really seen before, and so we had to adapt it, but we couldn't do it. And so it's really finding our own pace and managing to feel the game and how we want to approach Train as a team. But I think we're going to be good on it again, because the double up setup works pretty good, especially on the city side. We have Kenny and Shocks, 2 good snipers, and if we can manage to have more stability on the city side and more ideas on the T side, I think we're going to be very good on the map. Our goal, though, is to have more than 2 maps that are great, that we're great on. Sure. And that's why we're working very hard on our map pool to really have several maps that we can rely on, that we are not afraid to pick against teams.
So one of the interesting things about Astralis being ranked #1 is that when they won the major, if teams really wanted, they could have used the excuse of like, yeah, but we're all about to make roster moves, you know, and that, you know, you won in the era when, like, you know, every top team on paper had like a roster move planned, you know, so it makes it sound weaker. But obviously since then they've continued like winning top 4s, finals, etc. With all the teams that are out there now, there's a lot of teams that have dangerous lineups, you know, and people think are getting better. Obviously now FaZe just won, Fnatic's on the way back. You've got Navi's got the new coach, you know, there's all these G2's obviously here. There's all these different teams where people are excited by the potential. If you had to put your money down, excluding G2, because it doesn't make sense to ask if they're going to be the best, of the other teams out there, like 3 months from now, 4 months from now, is Astralis still the best of that group? What would your bet be?
Let me just have a quick look at the actual TV power ranking. Just I'm sure that I don't exclude any team.
Sure. I mean, we've got FaZe, we've got G2, we've got Navi, VP, obviously, SK.
Yeah, I think it would be tied between Astralis and VP. If VP can do it again and pick it back up and go back to the first place and winning tournaments. No, yeah, I'd say Astralis is still up there. I'd say Astralis is still would stay on top. I mean, they've been impressive by their consistency, obviously, And about the way they're approaching the game, I mean, they seem extremely complete. And that being because of Glaive or Zanuck, I don't really know, but they can do, it seems like they can do anything. And they've worked on very specific part. I mean, they're playing, yeah, again, they're playing so many, they're making so many things so well and so simple that it works against anyone that it's hard to counter them and it's hard to beat them because they're very flexible. And so if you want to break it, if you want to break a team that is so flexible, you just have to brute force into them and don't give them time to adapt and to really think about what happened. You need to shock them to a point that they go out of the game that they just say, what the fuck just happened? How did we get stomped, or how did we lose that game? Because you need brute force against them. You need to break them. You need to break players in a game. For instance, if you completely nullify Device, it's going to be hard for him. I mean, it's going to be hard for the team because he is such a pivotal point of the whole roster. And that's why they're so good at the moment. It's just people cannot really break them open and just get into them and shake them up. They can still dictate the pace of every game they're playing, and I see them continuing doing that because there is no reason why they wouldn't be able to.
Okay, at the end of the interview, do you have anyone to thank or say hello to?
I'd like to say thanks to my mom. No, there is nothing special. Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'll see you soon, I guess.
Okay, merci.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Carl-Sedermoon. You might know me as the guy with the most IM medals in the world, or something like that. I'm also the CGO Fnatic, and you're watching Duncan Thorin Shields YouTube channel. Yeah, pleasure being here.